Hello, everyone. This is Beyond BJU, exposing fundamentalism. And today I am going to be talking about recognizing spiritual abuse. And so we're going to dig into just my own journey with discovering that term, defining it, and then recognizing the signs. For those listening to the preview, this is a Patreon bonus episode, and you can access the full episode of my Patreon. Thank you, Patreon community. You allow me to do this work. And for those interested, my Patreon starts at $3 a month, and there's also a 7-day free trial. But I would really appreciate it if you join my Patreon. But let's get into this bonus episode of Beyond BJU, exposing fundamentalism. So I discovered the term spiritual abuse around 17 years old. At that point, I was very much indoctrinated into the IFB movement and struggling with my mental health, blaming and shaming myself because that's what I was indoctrinated to do. In high control religion or cults, or even in abusive relationships, the victim is always at fault. It's never what the person is doing. It's never the group's teachings or practices. It's just everything is on you. You're not seeing it the right way. You're not applying it enough. You're not submitting enough. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. Nothing is wrong with the system or the beliefs, the practices, or the person in control. It's all put on you. So for the longest time, blamed myself. And I had never even considered that spirituality or spiritual things could be harmful, because the indoctrination of not even being able to think those thoughts, to even question that, because of the consequences of even questioning that. But I remember coming across a book called The Subtle Power of Spiritual Abuse, and really it started that questioning of, oh, this can be harmful. I am not the problem. And I think language and words and terms are so important because it helps us understand ourselves. It helps us understand our reality. And if you want to, one aspect of cults and abusive relationships and authoritarian groups is that they control language and words and information, so they can control your reality. They can limit you, restrict you, and control you. So once you find language to understand yourself, your reality, your experiences, you can begin to change that, play with that, question that, understand it, so you can make the choices that you need to make for your health and well-being. So when I saw the term spiritual abuse growing up, there could be nothing bad about spirituality. I remember hearing growing up, oh, you can never get too much church. So there was this assumption that there could never be anything harmful about it. And so when I saw spiritual abuse, a negative take or a view that, oh, spirituality can be harmful, that really started that questioning in my brain around the harmfulness. And so that's what I want to dig into today, is this term of spiritual abuse. So there are 3 different sources where I found definitions of this, and I want to read them. I think there are commonalities between them, but at the end, after reading them, I'll synthesize the main ideas from them. The first one is from the book, The Subtle Power of Spiritual Abuse. And so they define it as, and I quote, spiritual abuse is a mistreatment of a person who is in need of help, support, or greater spiritual empowerment, with the results of weakening, undermining, or decreasing that person's spiritual empowerment. And they go on to say that this is a broad view, and they say, and I quote, let's refine that with some functional definitions. Spiritual abuse can occur when a leader uses his or her spiritual position to control or dominate another person. It often involves overriding the feelings and opinions of another without regard of what will result in the other person's state of living, emotions, or spiritual well-being. In this application, power is used to bolster the position or needs of a leader over and above one who comes to them in need, end quote. So that's from The Subtle Power of spiritual abuse. The next definition is from WebMD, and they say, and I quote, any attempt to exert power and control over someone using religion, faith, or beliefs can be spiritual abuse. Spiritual abuse can happen within a religious or spiritual organization or a personal relationship. Spiritual abuse is not limited to one religion, denomination, or group of people. It can happen in any religious group as an element of child abuse, elder abuse, or domestic violence. Domestic violence, also called intimate partner violence, can be a concern across relationships of all ages, genders, socioeconomic classes, ethnic groups, and locations. Abuse is a pattern in which one individual, whether an intimate partner or a person with authority, uses fear, intimidation, violence, threats, or any other harm to control another. Abuse can cause serious trauma and have a significant impact on your mental health, and it is important to remember that abuse is never your fault, end quote. All right, the next definition is from Psychology Today, called When Is It Spiritual Abuse? And they say, and I quote, spiritual abuse is the abuse of the human spirit. And while many would say that the spirit cannot be wounded, it is definitely possible to split off from conscious awareness of the spirit. It is possible to live a life totally bereft of any real connection to the spirit, a term that is used here synonymously with soul or authentic self. We can also live so identified with a role, a mask, a costume, that we do not allow the mind to wander into the fields, climb the mountains, swim the oceans of the human spirit. That's what spiritual abuse does. It cuts us off from spirit so that we don't live in it or from it. Well, how does this happen? Well, it can happen as a result of other kinds of abuse. When a child is physically abused, for example, the child might identify as a bad kid who deserves to be punished. This might mean he will act out, expecting to get punished, or try to strategize as to how to avoid it. Either way, he has not identified with his own true self, his deepest essence, his soul, his spirit. Where does that spirit go? It goes into the unconscious, where it is only allowed out at night when this young person is dreaming. How sad, how angry, how small, how bad will he have to be before he can wake up to who he actually is? But it can also happen whenever someone tries to tell you how to feel, what to think, or what to believe, so much that your own original thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are not allowed in the room. Take, for example, in a case in which someone is told by a spiritual leader that the reason she had an auto accident was because she'd been thinking negative thoughts and that she needs to control her negative thinking to keep negative things from happening to her. It has potential to raise so much anxiety that she will try ever after that to push away or repress any negative thoughts or feelings and replace them with what seems to be positive thoughts and feelings. This puts her in a constant moment-by-moment battle with her own inner world so that she cannot allow thoughts, feelings to be made conscious. No, she must fight these off to make sure nothing negative ever happens to her. This is spiritual abuse because it teaches her to go at war with her own spirit, end quote. I know that was a long example, but I thought that was helpful. So when they say spirit, I mean, I see it as like the authentic self, like, the feelings and emotions and things that we have in our body because of this inner self that we have. And that's the thing with high control groups and cults and abusive relationships. They're all about constricting and pushing down and destroying the self. So any of your own emotions, thoughts, or beliefs or desires are restricted and shoved down, and you sacrifice that and push those aside and replace, and it really is replaced with what the leader wants. So kind of like indoctrination or brainwashing. And really the root of any abuse too, or really the foundation, is coercive control, whether it's spiritual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, religious abuse, whatever it is, sexual abuse. Coercive control is used in these situations, and they're, obviously specific to the different kinds of abuse, but that's a foundational level. So yeah, coercive control is just using fear, threats, intimidation, and control to force a person to do something against their will and to override their free will. Thank you for listening to this Patreon bonus preview of this episode of Beyond BJU. You can access the full episode on my Patreon. The link is in the description. Thank you.